He doesn't want to sit by me anymore. I don't know what happened over the years. All right.
Hey guys, just a reminder, this is a part of the Vidcon Academy, so just make sure to swipe your badge on your way out so you can get credit. Hi, we're FBE. Up here on stage, you're going to be seated. I mean, we could introduce ourselves.
Great logo, though.
A great logo, all very fresh, brand new. We just recently had a rebrand. Over here you'll see Mark Elizabeth, who is our CEO, Benny Fine, who is our CCO, Rafi, who is our president, Andrea Kenlock, who is head of business development, and then Rachel Evans, who is head of our current community team. And working on a bunch of our vertical different platforms. And I'm Nicole. I'm the community manager here at FBE. So to start off this panel, we kind of we sat down together and we more or less went through what are the main questions that you should be asking when you're thinking of starting a business or thinking about delving into YouTube as more than just a creative outlet for yourself and thinking about expanding past the initial, hey, I'm a creative person that I want to make something amazing for the world. And presentation's still not going. It's fine. Can somebody help us out? Oh, next slide. Cool. So right now at FBE, we have 96 people working for us. That is absolutely massive. We take up an entire building and we're still growing every single day. And it's hard to imagine that these 96 people started out from just next slide please. These two guys sitting in a room with like 15 lacy drives and trying to figure out how to put together different episodes and how many things they should be distributing per week, and should they just be going towards one type of content or should they be diversifying the platform and the brand that they have. Next slide. Ooh. So the first question that you should kind of ask yourself is, if and when should I be branching out? The number one question is, do you want to? And I guess I'll kind of throw that to Benny and Mark's direction, because that's a really big question. How would you guys approach that? Because I know both of you have, Benny, of course, you founded FBE. Mark, you founded quite a handful of companies.
Yeah, I mean, just like Benny's take for the early days of FBE, but I think hopefully this panel, we're trying to make it we're gonna have questions at the end. We really want this to be useful, valuable, and hopefully we'll share some insights and share knowledge. I think the first question because it's like building a business from scratch, but I think the first question, honestly, the answer is, do I want this to be a business? It's okay not to start a business, because it may just be a great hobby. Maybe it provides a little bit of income, and it doesn't need to have all of the sort of growth and stress that may come with a business. But that said, deciding to do it is sort of the first step. Am I going to commit this as part of my career? And 12, 10 years ago, 2004, really, Benny and Rafi, you guys decided we're going to keep at this, but this is what we want to do as part of the dream. So yeah, curious about it.
Yeah, I think that the term business is sometimes interesting, because what is a business? Sometimes that could just be yourself, and if the goal is I don't want another job, I just want to be making content online, that is a business. Rafi often talks about how every YouTuber that you like is a CEO, even if they don't consider themselves a CEO, because they are technically having to do all these aspects to keep their own processes going. But the question is, are you looking to be a business, meaning beyond yourself, or are you looking to just be self-sustaining? And what does that mean? Typically, it does require some degree of a business that would need to start for you to probably hire a few people, even if it was a small thing that you wanted to do, because at a certain point, more than likely, if any of you are creators that are in that grind right now, You don't really want to spend 24/7 by yourself for the rest of your life, which is what it takes if you're completely on your own. So it leads to at least need to hire a couple of people. But what type of business do you want to be? And versus, it's the first step. Because if you don't know, if you want to be a giant company making lots of things, or do you want to just want to make a living? And that kind of is where you can start.
Yeah, because it does kind of also fall into like creator exhaustion, which we're seeing across the industry constantly. I imagine also building a business helps manage that.
We're so close.
We're so close. This presentation is gonna make its way to the next slide.
Everybody stay together.
Next slide. Oh, no, go back.
Oh no.
Oh, no, we're too far forward. Oh, we pressed the button too many times. So from that, we kind of go into the conversation of who's the first person that you hire? Who are you bringing onto this team to be able to start making this a business? And I guess I'll kind of throw that to Rafi, since you definitely were part of that first hire process.
Yeah, we've had this conversation so many times now over the years with so many creators who are getting to the point of why we even had thinking about this panel. It wasn't like you're not starting literally from zero, because you are a business already when you're running things yourself. But then it's the moment of like, okay, who is that first person that you bring on? And we've always talked about it as we say, you're going to want to go for a producer, an editor, or an assistant. And depending on who you are and what you're trying to do, like one of those people are what you should be heading into. You might want a producer because you're thinking about growing even further than yourself. You need somebody to really help with a lot of the logistics and putting together the whole shoot, and actually also be somebody that could be maybe the manager and the boss of the other people you might hire. If you're not looking for that, some people really just need an assistant to really help them figure out, like, where do I need to be, all my email, all these like challenges that you're facing day to day to keep it all together. It might just be that person that's kind of like a personal assistant, but also an executive assistant that they're doing your business, but also helping with your personal life. Then the editor, I think, is one of the things that a lot of people are like, usually is their first one. But sometimes we talk about like, oh, you know what, again, you might not want to be a manager yet. So maybe you want to start getting used to what it means to have an employee. But the editor is where it's like, if you have enough revenue to hire somebody, one, be a good human being and give somebody a job. That's nice, right? People need jobs. But also, look at it as like, if you're making enough revenue to bring on somebody, and you're thinking about making more than what you're already doing today, which is probably already killing you, and it's already so hard and burning you out, think about it as like, if I bring on somebody like an editor, am I going to save even an hour of my day every single day? And that's one of the first things we really started thinking about, is that we were like working now 18, 19 hours, and it's like, well, maybe if with each of these hires, I can get back an hour from my day to help build my business, but also have a work-life balance. We're still not that great at work-life balance thing. We just keep hiring.
Hire more people and you think you're going to work less, and it's the opposite.
But that's kind of like a bunch of different thoughts around the first time.
Yeah, because especially for you, what do you think, this kind of goes into the next question, where which roles and which personality types do you think are the most important for a core team, especially if you can only have the bandwidth and the income to hire a few people? What kind of personalities and thought process do you think people should have? I could also hand that off to anybody who, yeah, it is kind of an open question.
Well, as the business person, maybe I'll speak to that. But I think that for any company, whether it's this kind of a company or a creator company or anything else, you need to have a balance of personalities, because everyone brings something different to the table. So obviously, if you're a creator, you're coming in with the creative gene, as it were, to bring to the table. So you might want to balance that with someone that has more of a business sense, someone who's good with being able to find resources from the community, whether it's money, fundraising, banks, possibly management of people, to process someone who you might want to bring on someone who's good with people. If you're an introvert, you might want someone who's an extrovert, who can manage people, who can deal with the outside world of, building relationships, that kind of a thing. So getting a variety of personalities and core competencies. If you're the creator, you might want a math person, someone who really does know how to balance the books, do payroll, or pay that one or two individuals that you have and do the taxes, or be able to find the tax person that you're going to use, and that kind of thing. So you want to make it's so easy, I think, for people to hire others who are like them, because that is what is comfortable for almost
in a situation where you can afford to hire someone. A lot of creators that I've spoken to over the years end up saying, I can't hire someone because no one can do it like me, and it's not going to feel like me, and my audience is going to reject it because of X, Y, or Z. And the main thing is, going back to what Robbie talked about, it is not them doing it for you. It is not them changing the way that you do all of these things. You're going to pass off information, but even if the worst case scenario, you've saved yourself some time. Editing is the best example of that, because you make the video. How long does it take to just get that onto the computer, even just to transcode it, to put it in order, to get it set in editing? If someone is doing even just that for you, or doing a first pass, you still saved yourself more time and more mental energy. And reminding yourself too, if you think about all other creative endeavors out there, it's always teams. We're in a scenario where this is new. It's still new. We've been doing this for 15 years, but it's still very, very new, where it's a whole different model of production. When normally, if you're doing things in television or in film, there's huge amounts of teams that are working on it, and you're completely by yourself. So hiring one person to get you started is still a very positive thing. And when you make a movie or a TV show, the creator of that show didn't do every single thing themselves, yet they still make sure it's perfect. So you still will be able to maintain that quality. You'll just have someone else helping you get there and save you some time.
Yeah, I wanted to say too that I feel like we live kind of like in an era of, we see these teenagers who are CEOs and run their own merchandising companies and have their own businesses. It can be very intimidating if you feel like you don't have that yet. And it's okay to ask for help and to admit that I am one way and I need somebody who's going to maybe be more of a process person if you're a hyper creative. And the first step is admitting that you need help. But I think that's a really, really hard, because I was a creator too, and it's a really hard thing to do, to admit, like, this is who I am as a person, and this is what I'm capable of doing, and I'm gonna learn every part of your business. It's important to know every part of your business, but to know that if I had this one person who could do this a little bit better, then maybe I can focus on making my thing the best it can be. And also, if you're not in a position yet to hire somebody like that, ask for help. Your friends are there to help, and if you're doing something cool, chances are they want to help you out with it. So.
One last add-on. You saw how we went from 2 to 96 people. How long did it take for us to get to 96 people? And that large number also did come recently. Mark, you can kind of answer that.
First of all, I mean, I've admired the business that Benny and Robbie and Andrea and others have really built over the years. When there was, if you look at sort of digital media and a lot of the online video companies especially, they took a whole lot of money, they raised capital, and it was just big. Literally, there was a moment in time where it was like, okay, I have an idea. I'm going to get a vertical in the beauty space, and we're going to make a lot of YouTube videos, and I'm going to raise money. And literally, like, first step was pitching somebody to fund it. So people come up to me and be like, how did you get an investor? How did you pitch it? What do I need to say? What's the magic words? And all along, we had a business in FBE that didn't raise money. It actually said, we just need to focus on making great content, focus on doing it, like, know exactly what it costs, and being really kind of methodical, but also reinvesting in the business. It is probably the biggest words is reinvest that FBE did over the years. Still, to this day, has not raised a single dollar of outside capital, but it has built a profitable business. And if there was a slide, I would say, like, I would have a picture of a Lamborghini here with a big X on it. Like, don't buy a Lamborghini. That like, any time you get a big brand deal and it's really exciting, but like that, we invested in better equipment, better people, maybe paying people you've had just a little bit more. So yeah, I would say it was a very, like, brick by brick is sort of an internal mantra that we use. It's very still much that.
It's been 8 years of employees. So from just me and Ralphie to in 2011, we were hired our first person, that then turned into 8, and then slowly, but surely, carefully, conservatively, reinvest, which we still do. And we put everything back into this company that you can then be in a spot where you have 96 employees, which is still very insane without investment dollars. And a lot of people that have raised money will look at it and go, how is that even possible? And it's a lot of work. Everyone in this company wears a lot of hats and has to all kind of be in it together and understand that you've seen probably so many different creators. Sometimes they get bought by other companies and that company goes out of business, or people are getting laid off left and right. There's a reality to what it means to be a strong, independent company, and be in a place where everyone that works for you needs to understand why that is and how that is in order to keep growing. But you don't need to look at it as I'm going to be 96 people. It really can just be you and like 3 people, and you can have a great business that you don't need other work, and you get to do the thing that you want to do. It's really, you don't, I think a lot of times, sometimes people come into even FBE and they'll look, and part of them they get really inspired, and then also they get really afraid. They're like, whoa, how did you do this? Incredible. Then when they start thinking about what that really would mean to have 96 employees that you're paying every month, they get freaked out, and they sometimes say, I don't know if I want to hire anybody. And it needs to become, like, again, one thing at a time. You don't need to grow fast. You need to just grow with what you're ready for and what you can afford.
Next slide.
So, as creators, you're also probably coming in with a pre-existing creative and content strategy. I know you guys worked on a lot of different things when building and founding this business, from animation to live action to scripted. You've worked on a lot of different things. How do you think? How did you approach kind of changing some of that content strategy after you've already built that pre-existing audience?
I'm gonna use my Fortnite analogy, everybody. Get excited. One of our mottos is adapt or die. And I think with the algorithms we all deal with, and the way that the platforms work, and the competition that comes onto it from so many other people, healthy competition, that they can make more content, longer content, to feed the algorithms, like everything they need to do. So you get in a place where then the monetization is so low that you're like, okay, what type of content can I really make? And I think over the years we kept trying. We hoped that there was going to be higher CPMs and all these things, and it was like, you know what, it isn't. And one day it will come. It's still like slowly but surely. We've said it for a long time, but you will be able to make different types of content in different ways, thanks to monetization going up and building a good commerce part of your business. So what we ended up having to do over time is, the internet to us was kind of like Fortnite. And you were on this bus flying above this island, and you're like, oh sweet, it's an island. They're like, yeah, you can jump wherever you want. What do you mean? I can go anywhere I want on this island, the internet? Oh, that's cool. You jump out, go and plant, you're like, sweet, now what I can go, I can knock down buildings, I can do this, I can do that. And then you're like, sweet, so this is great. I'm happy to do whatever I wanted, and I'm creative, and it's fun. Then they're like, oh, there's a storm. And you're like, what? Why is there a storm? And you're like, what does that storm mean? Like, oh, well, you gotta go to this part of the island. You're like, okay, that's all right. I don't want to go to that part of the island. I actually like my part of the island. So what happens if I don't go to that part of the island? It's like, oh, you die. You're like, oh, you slowly die. Like, it slowly kills you. And so you gotta run to that part, and you can only make things like that on that part of the island. And they're like, sweet, I got to that part. Now what? They're like, oh, well, there's another storm. And you gotta run to this part. It's even smaller, and even smaller, and even smaller, and even smaller.
And all of you are still there together in that tiny area, though.
Yeah. And so I think that that's why it became so hard for so many companies and creators to continue to try to figure out how to adapt or die. But that's the Fortnite analogy, everybody.
Yeah,
that's how we did it. We kept saying, how do you change what you do?
Before Fortnite was a thing, we kept calling it the Fortnite analogy.
I'm sure with that creative change and strategy change, there's also business strategy change that you two have had to approach. Were there some significant changes that you had to make? I can even throw this over to Rachel, because you did found a company.
Yes.
Yeah, I never remember. Just one.
To me, I take this question a little bit differently, because I did come from a place of pure creative, which is, I don't have 96 employees, so you see where that goes. But to me, like, when you say, can you change your content strategy after you've already built an audience, I feel like this is a fear I hear from a lot of creators, is that once they've developed audience affinity, they're afraid to try something. For instance, I used to have a show that was a true crime show. I got very upset reading about murder all the time, and I said, oh, I'd like to do something that is a little bit lighter, and I didn't do it because I was afraid that my audience would reject it. And to be honest, I tried a couple things and they did reject it, and that's because I built an audience affinity, but it's also because I didn't continue to try, and I didn't diversify in a way that was strategic. And so that's what's so important about like this conversation and building a business strategy surrounding your content strategy, because you have to understand that you can't, when you are trying to build a scalable business, you can't just throw spaghetti at a wall forever. At a certain point, once you've built an affinity, once you've built an audience, you have to respect that audience enough to know what they want from you, but also know what you want to give them and understand how to get to that point. And to me, getting to that point means like building a good team around you that when content strategy, I'm literally thinking of how many times a week are you uploading? Like, what kind of content are you uploading? Are you making sure that your old content is still reaching the audience that it wants to reach? And are you building a business plan to support this new content? Like, is there social media? Is there merchandising? And I think, like, honestly, FBE has done it better than I've seen anybody do it with the kind of content that we make, because you'll see something on Echo, on Pluto, on our React channel that is so distinctly different from FBE proper, and you're like, how does that come from the same company? And it's because we've built teams surrounding these content changes. So,
Next slide.
Well, like, I'd be interested, like, the idea from you on the community side, I think that that's one of the biggest things is like, we wouldn't really have done it without also helping the audience understand where we're heading, what we're doing, why we're doing it. And I think that YouTubers, it's a pretty amazing thing how you understand how to talk to the audience, kind of like, this is why I have to do what I gotta do.
Yeah, there's also there's an aspect of it that's kind of that degree of transparency. It's so hard to go to a bunch of people who you've shown one thing to, who you're like, hey, do you like this thing? Keep liking this thing. And then going up to them and being like, hey, we're changing everything. That causes that person to be uncomfortable with whatever changes that you're implementing. But when you're having an open dialogue with your audience, when you're consistently communicating with them, when you even have them bring a little bit of their input into what you're making. Like right now, YouTube memberships is so important to all of us, and every single one of us at FBE, we have like teams built for this, because one, those people are the people who are investing and spending a lot of time and effort to literally invest their dollars into our company. And then on top of it, those people are actively giving us input. They're telling us what they want us to change, what they want us to do. So it's something that's really important for, I think, anybody to make sure and keep the audience in your mind whenever you're implementing these changes, to open that communication and to keep like working with them.
Like, we used to talk about how it was amazing watching, some people still do this in their vlogs, where if they're thinking about like the background might change for their vlog, and it might look like they're in a nicer house or something, it's like they start trying to be like, oh my god, for like, maybe for 6 months, maybe you should start saying how you really don't like where you're currently living, and help them understand it, because there have been like weird backlash around the idea of like, what, you're in a new house now, or like, oh, you got a Lamborghini, like if you're not talking about like, I always wanted a Lamborghini my entire life, and then all of a sudden, instead of it being something that people reject, it's something for people to be like, oh, I understand the why behind it.
Yeah, the why is so important. And there's some creators that have actively done this. Like you'll see, one of my favorite examples is Simply Illogical. When she was moving into a new house and changing her background to whatever the current setup that she has, she took you through every step of the process. Her packing up all her nail polish, her setting up the IKEA layout, and like building that whole thing. So it's important to have them be a part of every step of your journey. Oh, no. So that kind of teetering off into a slightly different conversation, brand deals and working with branded. And this kind of falls down to Mark and Andrea. When should you be passing on a deal? When should you be accepting it? Because I know that there's a lot of brands that will come to you with high numbers, low numbers, something in between that you don't know if you should take. Please.
Yeah, I can start off on this one. So I think probably everyone in the room would probably already think and know that they're gonna pass on a deal if it's not a good fit for their own creative brand. So if somebody comes to you with something that's just completely like a sellout for you, you would probably say like, I'm gonna pass on that. So that's kind of a given baseline of where you would pass. But in other ways, brand deals are the way that you can monetize in a higher margin way. It gives you opportunity to create more expensive content for that particular video, and hopefully then be able to take some of that money to reinvest into your company, into the next videos or whatever. So it's important to build that brand business over time in a smart way. And so when someone comes to you for a brand deal, hopefully they are coming to you, that's awesome, because they're obviously already, they're raising their hand, they're interested in what you're doing. And if you don't know a lot about it, obviously getting educated on it, on things of pricing and how you're gonna set your rates in the marketplace. A lot of times brands will come with, they're going out to a lot of creators that are mean that you shouldn't do it, but what you should be looking for is a couple of things. One is, can I afford to do this? Are they paying me enough? And is this something for free that I'm gonna get their product, and I do love this product, and so I really wanna do it? Those are things are okay to start taking early on if, in fact, you do feel confident about the product and it's something that you would wanna work with again. And in those cases, I would say you would wanna talk to that brand about like, well, I can invest my time and resource into doing this for you for a low rate or for free because you're giving me a product. If we can continue to have a relationship and continue talking about things as we move forward to build towards a bigger relationship. So you're using that as a relationship building tool for yourself. And when you're doing that deal with them, the most important thing for you to do, besides showing up and making sure it all goes smoothly, is to ask them, what is your goal? What are you trying to get out of me doing this video for you? Is it you just want a ton of views? Are you looking for an engagement rate? Are you looking for a conversion? You want to link in the description, you're going to expect a certain amount of clicks to your site. You want to find that out, because if you're going to take a low rate or no rate and you're going to do this and you want to build that relationship, you want to make sure that you can deliver on it so that you can get that business higher the next time. Because otherwise you're just spending your time doing something for free. And maybe you got the product and maybe that's enough for you, but over time you're going to want to build towards being able to do more and get more revenue. So if you know what they're looking for, and then you can orient your project towards that goal in a way that of course works for your audience, then you're going to find success. You're going to be able to demonstrate that success to them and hopefully continue that relationship so they come back to you the next time you get the rate higher. And the next company that comes in, you now have data to show that, yeah, I know how to do this. Here's some examples of how I've done it before and I've succeeded and I've helped these companies in these ways. And then you start building that brand business over time, project by project. And then you'll start knowing really what your rates should be, what you're good at, what your content generates. Our content generates a lot of views. We have a lot of reach and we have really good engagement. Other people's content generate a lot of the beauty brands will generate a lot of clicks over to buy that product, and that's important for certain brands. So you want to really start discovering that stuff about your own content and about your relationship with the brand so that you can build that business over time. It's a higher margin business than AdSense.
Yeah, I think that also goes into kind of the creative development and how to draw new brands in. Are you pitching towards brands with new creative? I can throw that at you, Benny, or Mark.
Tremendous answer by Andrea. I think there's a lot of value there. I like ultimately it's reputation, and I think you hit on a lot of those points. The only thing I'd really add is that that first to take a step back to know who your customers are, right? Like in the general business of content, there's really only two ways that where money is coming from. It's either the audience or consumers or advertisers. And there's various sort of subcategories of that, obviously ad revenue, through video and so forth. You kind of have to decide like how much in the branded business you want to be, because I think there's certainly different types of deals there, and we're actually having these internal debates today, because I think you start going further and deeper into the world of brands, you start getting into the world of custom creative, you're selling media, you're doing things that look and feel a lot like agency work, like ad agencies. And so you even have to have a little bit of an existential thing to say, okay, why am I doing this? Are we doing it for added revenue? Or are we doing it because it's creatively interesting? Does this get us to achieve something we wanted to do as a company? But ultimately, so it's a little bit of a why question there. But generally speaking, FBE has done a terrific job of like taking the small deal, sometimes first, to build a relationship, to over-deliver, to prove that we can perform, and then they come back. So a high rate of renewals is one thing I noticed right away at FBE. And I would encourage, like, if you're think about the renewal, not this deal, but think about the next one.
Good answer. Next slide. Nope.
I kind of jumped around there.
Yeah, but it does definitely fall back into that, where it's making making sure that you have a good relationship with that brand and that company and able to hop back into and maintain that. This kind of goes back to both you, Benny, and Rafi. What's something that's so easy to forget about when you're starting a company? When you have like one or two people and you're just building up, what's like the number one thing that most people forget? Is it like on the base level, like taxes?
I mean, that is a huge part that like hasn't really come up yet, but like there's so much legality around running a business and having a place that you have people work and all the signs that you have to have up and the handbooks that you have to have, and California labor law is very specific and changes all the time. It's always trying to stay kind of ahead of the curve of like making sure that employers are being good to their employees, and it's hard to make sure that you're doing all of those, and maybe very early on you can slide by with like one or two things that you don't do, but when you continue to grow, like especially, you're going to really need to be by the letter of the law. Benny and I, in the very beginning, like made a stand of saying that we were going to be following things very specifically because we had been at other companies that we were not at all, and it wasn't right to do to the people that we were trying to say, hey, like work with us and grow with us. You know, we always wanted to do our best with the limited funds that we would have to make it a place that was treating the employees right. So I think that is something where it's like, great, when it's like, do you want to be a manager? Do you want to start a company? It's one of the things that like people tend to go, I'm going to be an editor, and it's just like, you know what it means to be a manager? It's pretty much like being a parent. You know, like you're literally there. We have 96 children at the company in a lot of ways, and they're like the eldest kids and the middle children, and you know the youngest, and you treat them in different ways and talk to them in different ways, and you have to learn what that's like. And I think people don't necessarily realize the amount of work that goes into even having one hire and to keep them happy and to keep them motivated.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially when it comes to making sure that you're taking care of the people that work for you and making sure that you're checking in with them, because yes, that's 96 people, but it's 96 people that you need to be checking in on and making sure, okay, all full steam ahead of making sure you're doing great. I guess we'll go to the next slide, because that's a little.
I'll just say really tactically, it's there's some things you can do when you're starting a business that are absolutely like critical, like know your business structure you want to create. There's like a lot, obviously LegalZoom, and a lot of, I'm sure many of you already have done this to know like an LLC, an S Corp, a C Corp, a general partnership, know kind of the tax implications of that, who my founders are, who they aren't, is there equity in this company? There is like things that you can do right from the beginning that you can, it's very hard to do later without some other, just a lot of legal costs, frankly. So
I'll throw one more thing because I don't know where exactly it'll come up, but content, community, and commerce. 3 C's, that's what we're focused on. When you're starting out a business and you're trying to figure out like, is this going to be successful? How do I not be somebody that like, okay, maybe I'm getting views now, but how am I going to sustain that? How am I going to either grow or even just keep that audience? And I think you have to literally be saying to yourself, okay, I have this idea for content. I know that there's a community out there looking for this type of content, but thanks to things like horrible monetization on these platforms, it's nice that it's there, at least, but you have to then figure out what's the diversification of your revenue, what's the commerce side that you can do to help you sustain what you love, and you don't have to get 1 million views every episode to survive. And I think early on, people need to think about that far more, about like, wait, how am I actually going to try to make this into a business and keep my employees, you know, getting their salaries and be doing right by them by building something that isn't just holding itself onto an algorithm change that could go in any day, and then you lose your whole staff because you didn't actually figure that out. That's what happened to a lot of people on Facebook over the last couple of years. People just were all in on Facebook, just getting views, and then it was gone, and they had to fire everybody ASAP and shut down the companies.
Could you go back one slide? Oh, cool. Yeah, I just quickly on the brand or the gimmick, which is like a fun wrestling term if you don't know it. I think this is like a creative thing that is super important when you're starting your company as a YouTuber or as a digital media influencer, whatever you may want to do, is it's really important that you feel fulfilled creatively, but it's also really important that you deliver on your value proposition. And it feels kind of gross to talk about yourself in that kind of way, and I understand that, but there's an important intersection of creativity and pragmatism that comes with starting a business, and you have to be realistic about who you are and what you're willing to give to people. And when you're first starting out, especially in a creative and influencer-focused society or a community like we're in, to know what you're offering people and to understand that fully yourself before you give it to them. Because when you are defining your brand, that doesn't just mean like, oh, I do hair, so I'm going to talk to you about hair. Like, what do you stand for? What's your message to your audience? Because what you're asking is for them to follow you. And that's a really important and powerful thing. And if you don't really take into consideration how powerful that can be, then you're going to be irresponsible with it. So I think like on the more creative side as opposed to the business side, fully understanding what messaging you're putting out to the people and who your audience is and reflecting that in your content is super important. And staying true to yourself, but at the same time, understanding what business is and what you can offer, what you can sell of yourself.
And just to add to that, and how are you different than those that might look like you? Because that's key really to building a brand, is your differentiation. Might just be a little bit of a nuanced differentiation, but it's really important to figure that out early on and then continue to communicate that as well, so that you can stand out from others in your field.
We'll go a little bit more quickly so you guys have some time to ask questions. Can we just go to the next slide? This kind of goes back into that conversation where it's what should you like mainly keep in mind when expanding your programming and the content that you're making, and how much should your core audience be involved? Because coming from a community management side, it is so important to have your audience be involved in the content that you're developing and to consistently be giving you that feedback. And I know at FBE, we have processes where we straight up will pilot an episode and we'll ask the audience for their response. So any thoughts on that, specifically Benny and Rocky, since both of you are mainly part of that process?
I think for the most part the audience tells you, they want more, and when they're very often telling you things like, why aren't you uploading as much, or I want to see more of this, it kind of, at least in the beginning, you have an idea around if you can sustain making more content, that the audience wants more content. So they'll kind of tell you, and then what's already been talked about earlier on the panel comes into play. When you're making something very, very different, if you're taking another step, then you fully need to have your audience involved, or you run the risk of them rejecting you. But if you're doing things that are adjacent, which I think you look through our content of the last several years, everything's kind of adjacent to each other. It's still usually the same cast, or it's still something that has to do with people reacting. Even if it's a game show, there's still an element in there that you can be like, oh, I can see, this isn't weird that you're making this, but then the pilot point is, what do people like this new game? Is more what you ask, but you kind of already have a gauge as to if they want more and when to expand from demand. It fully is a demand ecosystem there, where they're constantly telling you, upload more, upload more, upload more, that's a topic.
Next slide. So this is something that's super important, because when you're going to be approaching developing your own business, it's very important to keep your community in mind. These are the people who are actively supporting you. These are the people who are spending, whether it's 15 minutes of their day to 1 hour, or however many hours that you spend live streaming or posting a video. Like, they are absorbing your content and spending time with your company and with the people that work at your company. So Rachel and I deal with this a lot, specifically since we're both on the community side. What do you personally think is key for fleshing out your community in a creator-founded company?
Yeah, we don't really live in an elusive time anymore. Like, there are no Robert Redfords, if anyone knows who that is. But we live in a time of transparency, and I think that's really important, because YouTube is the variable. It's the ultimate variable. It's the humanizing factor. It's the most humanizing platform to me. And so if you are not transparent with your community and with your audience, they're going to see it and they're going to feel it, or they're just not going to invest their time and emotion into it, because more times than not, you may be presenting a very polished product to them, but at the end of the day, you are one person presenting something to the world, and if they have context for that, if they have context for the thing that you're providing to them, like as in, hey, that's Rachel, I know that she had a hard week last week, so she might have a little like gravel in her voice because she was sick. Like something as small as that garners a community that is kind of infallible. Like you, they stay with you forever, and I think that's kind of the most interesting thing about a business surrounding content like this is that you are being human, but it's a calculated. You can't show them everything, obviously, but you should show them enough to let them know that you are a human being and you're doing the best that you can, and everything that you do is for them, because your content is nothing without them, truly.
Yeah, and with FBE specifically, our entire brand is not represented by a single sole person. It is represented by every single person, every single one of those 96 people that work at this company, every single person who's on the screen, who is our cast members, the people reacting to the content, every single community member that's going out of their way to talk to us on Discord, everybody in YTM, all the socials. Those are the people who are providing a voice to this company. We're just giving them an outlet to be able to.
Yeah, and also something that's really cool these days is that, like in linear television, you see on competition reality shows them engaging with the audience in a very YouTube way, because they're picking up cues from digital media, which is really cool, which means that we're doing it right. So I would just say continue to listen to your audience and don't think that like, if somebody, there's going to be negativity, but I also think that that can be constructive, so.
Yeah, next time you live tweet with The Bachelor, just know that it's because of YouTube.
It's because of YouTube.
It's because of YouTube. Next slide. Questions! We're opening up the floor to everybody, anybody. Right up front.
How do you find or develop people that are going to be just as driven to help grow your business as you are? Obviously,
Yeah.
as good as creative.
Yeah, it is really hard to find, repeating the question, but it's finding, your question is, how do you find people who are at the same amount of drive as you?
Yeah, well, people that are going to treat your business as their own.
Yeah, finding people who will treat your business as their own.
So it's obviously something that's really hard. We like FB. We talk about being a creator-founded media company. I think it's very true. Creators are, by nature, they're super high performers, as I think probably all of you here. In fact, you're even here. You're ahead of the curve. And honestly, like what it is frankly, is finding people who share some sort of that same passion for the work. I think at the end of the day, like one of the things, some of the best hires that we've had were just really, really excited about like these sort of general evolution of media and where things are going. So I like Rachel, for example. You had this like creator passion. When and other people you may look at it as frankly as a job, and not everybody is going to share that same passion. I know that we've tried to tell a lot of our context or story, and really try to get people invested in the why we do what we do. I think we could do it a lot better.
I'm adding here, this is my anecdote that I have, which is, of course, finding people that are passionate about the business that you're in or your content that you're creating is important, and that's part of it. But not everyone comes from that same point of view of like I'm a business person, I am not a creative on the team. So I told this story the other day, like when Benny and Rock wanted to hire me, they took me to lunch and they're like, are you passionate about this business? And I said, I'm passionate about the business side of this business. So you want to find people that have some passion towards the job that you're hiring them to do. They might not be, passionate about the creative side or whatever, but if you're helping them to fulfill their career journey by being an integral part of your team and helping them to find that path, they're going to be more invested in your company and what you're doing, because you're also caring about what they care about, or you're letting them have the path that they care the most about.
and then have the conversation with the person. When you're interviewing them, if you like them, find the way to ask the question, not are you going to be driven, but finding the way to talk about, like, why do you want this job? Even finding out why they are interested in working for you is a lot of information, because you might just find, well, I'm looking to break in, or I just want an editing job, versus I love what you do. And even right there can help you identify people that are more open to it or make the right hire choice based on how they answer why they're choosing to even work for you.
We have a little bit more time we have about 20 minutes for questions. Right here.
Hi, I have a question about the first handful of people that you bring on, because obviously with nearly 100 people, it's possible or even likely that you might not have those first few core people anymore, or maybe you do. When you're bringing in those initial few people, how do you have that conversation about direction of the company growth, and like whether or not there will be upward mobility for them, or helping those people, especially if they start on the ground floor of like being your very first editor, to suddenly managing a team of editors and really finding and training people to fill in those roles as you grow?
Yeah, the question mainly going towards how do you showcase that there's room for growth, especially within a company, especially if it's such a small core team initially. Mark, could you speak to that?
And also about the sort of early roles, what you need in that inception point. And Frank, like, let's be honest, early stages of a startup, you're generally not paying market rates. So occasionally you might be. I mean, you might, like, it depends, you might, but you're ultimately looking for people who are, willing to, frankly, wear a lot of hats. I think, I look at, like, I mean, there was a point, Andrew, you were over HR at the company and other pieces, but like, we're not actually like an HR professional, but like somebody had to do it, right? Somebody had to be over like finance and accounting. I think when you're an early person, you had John who was like over finance and accounting. Eventually, you could afford a finance professional. So I think there's a little bit of like, you need that right personality type who's willing, like, we're all like, okay, I will take on this crazy like labor audit thing that we have to go through. I don't know anything about it, I'm gonna take it on. And it obviously then what happens is specialization starts happening. I think you bring up a very good question about advancement.
I think just one thing to add to that is that you're right, it's gonna be hard to say, like, we're this little company and now I'm going to hire you and in a year I'll be able to promote you. You can't say those things. But what you can say is, we're a little company. We're gonna all have to wear a lot of hats and work really hard. We have an amazing product, content, whatever it is. We're on this journey together, and you have a really huge opportunity to help learn and help it grow, and you're gonna be on the ground floor of something. And whether that you have that knowledge and stay here, or you take that knowledge and you go somewhere else, that's the value proposition that I can offer you now, is that is gonna be something that you're gonna gain. I can't promise that you're gonna get a promotion in 6 months or a year. I can't promise that you're gonna make a ton of money or whatever else, but that I can promise you, because I'm here building this and you're here building it with me.
One more anecdote there is that I wish I thought about this earlier in the company, which was to help those people understand that it's okay to not become a manager. It's okay, it's like you think about sports teams, they have star players and they have managers. You know, there's different people that do different things, and you might never, like Derek Jeter, Yankees will be the team captain. And so I think that some people think that growth is only one way. There's lots of different ways for growth, and getting a higher salary by being the star editor, not being the manager of the editors. And I think you have to be good to your employees that way too, to not force them to become a manager if they're not good at that.
Yeah, because there's also a degree of like them then having to step away from something that they're, let's say they come in for social media and community and they're super passionate about that, and they move into a managerial space, they're no longer directly working with social media and community. So it's making sure that they know what steps they're also taking. Any other questions? Let's go up here and then we saw some of you. Hi, you're Superman. Hey.
Woo. We also talked a little bit about this yesterday, but when building the company, you guys are going it from scratch. As you see now, FBE uses Slack. Marty said FBE has started using Asana. I mean, focus on that. When building a company from scratch, like, how do you know when to start more interested on the business side? How do you know when to implement things such as OKRs, personal development of the staff, and P&Ls and all these other things. Like when you're someone that is not very knowledgeable on these business terminologies.
That's a big question.
Well, it's what I think you hope for early on, and I think that's part of like maybe hiring your first people and some of the things we're talking about is that you're gonna need that soon enough. Like part of how to innovate and adapt or die is to know things like how much things really do cost and how much did you really spend on them and how much did it take. If you're thinking about growing, how are you going to be able to build a model that actually works at that? When you bring on more people, how do you have communication tools like Slack that work way better? And I think that you're hoping to the best of your abilities you have as much of that unicorn ability to do so many different things when you're starting out. That's why I think it's been so fascinating watching the Matt Patton Stephs and the Red Links and us and Phil DeFranco. Like, these are people, whenever you talk with any of them, they have a similar way that they think very 360. And I think if you are somebody that doesn't have those aspects, it's kind of like that's maybe starts to be some of your first hires is analytic people,
at the same
business
time,
people.
I think if you're getting to the place where you're starting to grow the business, you almost need to approach it like you approach being a creator in the first place. There's an element for so many of us of like, well, I don't know how to edit, but I can't hire editors, so I teach myself how to edit. I don't know how to do graphic design, but I need to make thumbnails. I teach myself how to use Photoshop. It's not fun necessarily. You might not have the best mind for it, but you have to start realizing when you can't afford it, I need to teach myself some of these business terms. I need to understand what these things are. And then once I'm ready and can't afford to bring that person on, I'm actually much better equipped to explain to that person, hey, I need a lot of help, but this is the core basis of what this company does and how much money we make. And if you don't do it, it could just not set you up for success, and you can't necessarily be in the luxury to be able to hire those people, and you need to just kind of...
Benny's answer was better.
Also,
Listen to Benny.
Also, like, hashtag not sponsored, but lynda.com, there are a bunch of different online sources.
Hashtag ad.
Hashtag ad. But there's a bunch of different online sources that do give you that full like run through, like learning how to use Photoshop or learning how to edit something in a specific way.
It's also okay if you feel like you don't know what you're doing. And like, it's fine. Yeah. Nobody knows what they're doing. It's okay.
That's one of the best things about this industry, where it's everybody's constantly learning and pushing and moving forward and reinventing.
Just one more in. Just one more question.
I think we have one more question. In the back? Okay, you.
So how do you, thank you guys for coming out, appreciate it. I was going to find out how do you invest in the people that you employ? So I mean, are you actively finding out where their trajectory is and where they're trying to be? And if it is something that goes beyond your company, are you willing to still invest in them if that's what the value that they're bringing is great?
Yeah, so I guess the main question is, how do you invest in the people you employ?
I'm going to pass it off to Mark in a second, but Mark says something every time he addresses the company, and he says, do something great here. And there's an ethos a little bit to that at the company of what was even said before around we do invest in the people that work at the company. We want them to have value in being an employee there. Yes, in the ideal scenario, that would mean that they're going to stay here forever, and they're going to make all this great stuff, and they're going to rise in the company or become a star, but realistically, that's not necessarily going to be the case. But we want to instill a culture where they know that we're invested in their growth, even if it means that it leads to them leaving us for some other opportunity, because at least there was that learning, and that we weren't just like, do this job, and you're just going to do this, and we're not going to give you the skills because we know that you'll be enticed by somebody else or whatever. That's completely the anti of what we want to do, and I'll pass to Mark in terms of any elaboration on that. But I really like that he says that all the time to really instill that idea that yes, we want you to do great things here, even if it leads to doing great things somewhere else.
Yeah, thank you. And it's because we realize that maybe it's also being partly removed and having been in several different companies. I realize that it's okay to move around and that your career is long. I know that all of our employees will most likely go do something else in their career, and then some have really come back. And it feels a little at first when somebody leaves you that was early, it feels like a break of loyalty, and it feels like, oh my God, I did all this for you. Maybe I paid for this class. Like very realistically, we're actually like to get more specific. One of the ways we invest, we do have like the whole like management training software subscription that we sell for, so you can learn about like how to do OKRs, how to do SMART, smart goal setting. You can learn literally deep resource on how to actually manage. There's some things that we don't do that sort of are interesting in thinking about is like, should we send some of our insights folks to do a data science class so that they actually like, really an online course. But we are looking at this. I believe that investing in your people will pay off, even if they leave. And I hope that will attract good people. And also the word of when they were here, they felt, wow, FBE was a good, really good part of my career, and I was motivated to do something.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good note to end this on. Everybody, thank you so much for coming out. If you have additional questions, we've posted a tweet at FBE that you can go immediately respond to and we'll be replying to. Make sure to drop by our booth downstairs. It's in the 2400 section. We're having live streams all weekend, and we also have awesome merch, and we just got get the merch.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming by.